This used to say something else, the subtitle here. The reason that's up there is because there is a community, data mesh community on Slack. I think there's about 4,000 or 5,000 people in there. They have interesting debates, most of it very academic, and I quite enjoy occasionally asking what I think are really hard or what I think are easy questions, like in real life questions, which then cause people to argue for weeks and days on end. So this is kind of my depiction of the 4 pillars of data mesh that I was describing. So I'm going to move on to this kind of set of affordances is the term in the literature around data mesh, and there's a longer list, and we can get into I don't know, we can get into things like lineage, I guess, which maybe falls under trustworthiness. We can talk about a whole bunch of things that a data product must have. But really, I guess what we need to be able to do is find it. We need to be able to connect to it. We need to have some security around it so that it's controlled in terms of what we do. But these are all things that we want a data product to be able to provide us. Or to me, these are almost like infrastructure, right? They are controls, and they are ways of kind of interacting or helping us understand how we interact with data products. And actually, I think when I talk to organizations about data products, this isn't really where I would start. I don't know if the clicker works actually. Where I would start is here, which is really value. Right, and I've put it up there 3 times so that we take this message away with us. So there are a lot of different ways we can think about value, but fundamentally, right up front, before we think about what our data product would be, we kind of need to think about why we are doing this. What is it in the business that is broken, or what decision is there that we can make better? So we can take action, so we can make some money, or we can reduce some risk, or whatever the things are that we want to do. And think about this. This is classical business analysis that we've done for the longest time. So I ran a panel session, which some of you may have been on, sat through patiently this morning, with the head of analytics at Channel 4. And they have spent a number of months doing a bunch of business analysis to figure out what actually are the data products, what is the value of those data products, and where they should start with those data products. And this is something that we've been doing as a kind of, I guess, data people for the longest time, for like 10 or 20 years, right? And so these are the things that we still need to do with data mesh. We still need to figure out where we're going to start and what we're going to do. And actually, this is where I think we need to start thinking about spending effort. The affordances, as they're known in the data mesh literature, they're interesting and useful. They're useful attributes of a data product. But really, we should start at value. And it might sound like I'm explaining something that you guys all know, but when I talk to organizations, they get hung up on this concept of, well, what is a data product? And how do we define a data product? And I think, hopefully, the next slide will talk this through. You can tell that I've not presented this before because I don't know the order of the slides. So this is what I consider to be the spectrum of data products. Now, there's probably more, but what I mean by this is, when I talk to organizations, when I talk to consulting companies, when I look around the hall and go to the booths and see how they're positioning sort of data products and data mesh, these are broadly the categories that I see. So we will see people say, well, I've got a Kimball data mart, or I've got some tables. This is a data product. And I kind of think, it's not really a data product. You may be able to get some value out of building a table, but actually, is that really a data product? Does that have those affordances? Can I say that this table, can I talk to that table? Can I send a query to that table to tell me how trustworthy it is? Can I send a query to that table to tell me who can access that data? And broadly, the answer is no, right? So I would suggest that that's not really a data product, and we should probably not think about that as a data product. if we introduce the concept of metadata, and when I think about metadata, I think about table, schema types, column types, etc. But I also think about ownership. Who owns the table, right? Who owns this data? Who is responsible for this data? Who can access this data, right? So security. This to me is all just metadata. I think about tags. I think about security. I may think about SLAs. When it's available, how often does it get refreshed? To me, metadata is all that stuff that is associated with tables, and I think this starts to get us much closer to a data product. I'm going to skip over access pattern. Well, actually, I'll mention access pattern. So the idea, in my opinion, behind a data product is we should not care if we access this through SQL or through machine learning or as a stream. I still want the same security applied. Right? Seems reasonable. So we want to think about that when we're designing our data products. And then code. And this is where I actually think we start getting into what I think about our data products. So for me, the code here is the code that is used to generate the data. And so this starts, in my opinion anyway, to become a data product. And I'll give an explanation as I talk through this one, which is where we also introduce infrastructure. And now you're kind of all looking at me, I suspect, going, this fella's an idiot, because what on earth does that mean? So, humbly, I would suggest the data product is a text file with a number of declarations. The declarations go something along the lines of, give me some computers, start up a compute engine on those computers, run some code on that engine, that builds some data, push some tagging information into a data catalog, which is associated with the data we've just created, push some policy information into a security system, a policy manager, which is associated with the data that we've just created. A text file with a bunch of instructions. I would suggest that is a way of thinking about data products. Now, this is not, and I'm glad Jamak's not here today, but this is not, the literature definition of a data product. That's far more complicated and unwieldy in my opinion. But equally, this is useful. This is something that makes sense as opposed to, I've got some tables. And essentially, we can do some interesting things with a text file, right? We can do diffs, and we can do versioning, and we can do branching, and we can store it in GitHub, and we can start putting it into CI/CD pipelines. So now we actually have got sort of version control of data products over time. We can roll a data product back to a previous version. Essentially, though, the reason I put this into a text file is we have one place where we have all of this all of this information related to the data product. There are probably more things that we could put here. If you go on GitHub, you can search for data product definitions. There is an interesting one there which has got about 150 items. I think that's a lot. Maybe that you could use that as a kind of a superset. But this in my opinion is kind of probably the bare minimum. So, oh, we got some build. That's cool. Right. So, a slice of cake. Now, the reason I put this up here is because one of the reasons why we think about data mesh, one of the reasons why data mesh has the potential to help us out, is we are bringing together the operational and the analytical planes. Right? We're bringing together systems that have data of the state of our business. What's your bank balance? What's your data allowance on your phone? How many people are on the website, that sort of state of the business, alongside the analytical plane, which is how many people have done something over a period, how many customers do we have, what's things that allow us to do sort of trending and forecasting and machine learning and all that good stuff, right? So we have these two planes, and we really want to bring these together. Now, the reality is, what we probably want in a lot of cases is data products that span these two domains. So in that text file where I had that code, I may have some code that says connect to the operational plane, do some transformation on that data, maybe combine it with some data in the analytical plane, and output a table or a data set or a materialized view or whatever it may be in the analytical plane. Right, so I have data products that cross boundaries. I may have data products that sit completely and execute completely on the analytic plane, there's an argument we could have about having data products that sit completely in the operational plane. That's a discussion that if you really want we can have at the booth kind of later on. But the reason I put this up here is because I see a lot of organizations go, oh, we're going to adopt this, let's say a cloud data warehouse, and we're going to build data products. And you kind of think, well, okay, that's awesome. But what about the other data products? The data products where you may want to have some live data. You may want to see what's the trend of data today against all of similar days over history. That seems like a reasonable data product, right? So that's just one example. There are hundreds that we could talk through that basically have this ability or consume data from both of these planes. So when someone tells me, oh, you know, we've got all of our data into this thing, into object store or whatever, I kind of think, well, you've done half the job, because what we really want is we want, and I'll get onto who builds these, but we want domains to be able to build data products from the operational plane up. Now, if I was being pedantic, I might say that if you have like an object store or a data lake and you go up, then basically what you're going to get is sticky fingers, right? Because you've got jam in the middle between the operational plane and the analytic plane, which in my opinion represents some form of ETL or code or whatever. And so if you're ignoring this, then I think you're going to, it's quite short-sighted. I think eventually you're going to get to a point where actually you're not really building a data mesh. You're going to have a central data team, which is obviously the anti-pattern of a data mesh, and you're going to have a central data team to manage that data movement or that data copying, CDC, data pipeline, ETL, whatever you want to call it, between those two planes. And really that should be part of the data product. And I've got another slide later on which kind of covers this in a bit more detail. So I'm going to touch on governance a little. Not sure how I'm got on time. So when we think about governance historically, these are some of the things. If we did a poll, there probably other people have other ideas, and there'd be more things that we could put on here. But the reason I put this slide up, and the reason it's got a big circle around usage metrics, is because I think when we think about governance and we think about data products, usage metrics basically become really, really important. And the reason they become really, really important is they are linked to value. We have organizations that I work with who essentially pay people, and I said this in an earlier session, I think it was yesterday, they pay people, they pay their data engineers or their people in domains, finance, marketing, operations, risk, whatever, they pay those people more money at the end of the month based on the number of usages of data products. And this is a really interesting thing, because now we're incentivizing, organizations to, we're incentivizing individuals in domains to actually build things that people care about and people are going to use and people are going to get value from. So up front I said we need to do some business analysis to figure out which data products are valuable, where should we spend our time first, which data products are the kind of key ones or critical ones. And that's cool. But then on an ongoing basis, we need to keep kind of re-evaluating, is this data product useful? And this starts to get us away from the historic, Kimball and data marts and whatever, where as data professionals, we've gone, we think these people are going to use this cube or this data mart, we're going to build it. And it sits there forever, because no one knows if anyone's using it. With data mesh, we want to know exactly who's using it. We want to know how many times they're using it. And I would argue, that's a bare minimum, I would argue you also want to know how they're using it, right? So if I build a data product and 10 people do is join it with another data product, maybe I should create a new data product which is the combination of those two data products, because then I'm going to get paid more at the end of the month. But this gets into this sort of incentivization, which leads us to this sort of picture. Now, I had the panel session this morning, and again, this is something that I'll refer to. Mike Turrell at Channel 4 said the way that he defines a data product differently from an asset or a table or a silo is simply this. It's that someone is proactively managing the data. If you have someone proactively managing the data, they're treating it like a product. And that is it, right? That is the very simple definition of a data product. Now, to do this, to switch from this situation where someone phones up and says, I've got I need some new data as part of this report, and they raise the ticket, and 3 months later someone does something, and by the time they've responded it's too late and no one cares and we've moved on. Moving from that to the situation where someone is using my data, I'm going to phone them up and ask them how they feel about using my data. I'm going to ask them what they're doing with my data, ask them if my data could be shaped in a better way for them to be able to use it. Now, obviously, in a big organisation, that's hard. I can't phone everyone. But if I have information about who's using it and how they're using it, and I can see the queries and the sorts of things they're doing with it, and I can have reports around that, then I can proactively take that action without necessarily talking to them and phoning them up, or I can do both. And so I think this is a really, really important concept. We are, in my opinion, this is the simplest definition of data products. It's we proactively manage data in a data product. So who builds data products? Now, I spend, I think I do a quarterly call with a bunch of CDOs from around the UK, and also sometimes with folks from Germany. And this is some of the things that I've kind of heard across businesses that are on their kind of journey. So they've got this concept of a domain, and within a domain they are sort of distributing people with technology skills, or sorry, data skills I should say. And I'll come on to a little bit about this in a bit more detail on the next slide. But what they are doing is they are putting these data engineering skilled people into the domains. And they're basically calling them these sorts of things, right? A capability squad, a transformation team, a personal trainer. And I really like the concept of a personal trainer, and I've used this a couple of times with a couple of different people. This idea that we are putting some people into a domain who really understand data, alongside people who really understand the usage of the data. These folks, the data engineers, are educating, training, enabling the rest of the people in the domain to be able to become data citizens and build their own data products. And once they've built, a few data products in this particular way, with, maybe that's SQL based or whatever, maybe then they move on to machine learning type data products, or data products that can be used as a stream, or some dimension of business. So I quite like this kind of concept of a personal trainer, which is quite a new thing to me. There's other things that we need to think about here, and I'll just touch on, cognitive load. Zhamak refers to cognitive load quite a lot. I think this is quite an interesting term. We basically don't want people to have to know a load of stuff to be able to do their job. We want to make sure they can do their job knowing the minimum amount possible. Data and business, not technology. And I think, so you think that's one of the aspects of choosing, one of the criteria I should say, of choosing technology is to reduce that technical load, that cognitive load, so people don't have to know loads to be able to build data products, because these are data citizens who are building them, enabled by the personal trainers. And then obviously you can imagine that data literacy is quite important there. Thank you. So what does this kind of look like? This should say something. So what does this look like? So this is kind of a hub and spoke model. It's I'm not particularly keen on this depiction yet. I'm going to sort of think about this a bit more. But we can think about these domains around the edge, right? We know if you're familiar with data mesh, you know that there's not a central data team, right? You have a central infrastructure team, but you don't have a central data team. Those central data team skills are out in the domains. So why would I draw this? So the reason I would draw this is because what we've started to see across a lot of organizations who are adopting data mesh is what I would call a central enabling team, right? So we have these personal trainers who are helping out the domains to do the things they need to do with respect to data and build data products and useful data products, etc. But we also want some level of consistency across the domains. Wouldn't it be cool if we had some blueprints that were developed by somebody? Maybe they were taken from maybe finance, and those blueprints were useful in other domains. Maybe it's as simple as maybe a user-defined function for defining some cross-domain data entity. These are things that you ideally have someone to perform, and this is where this central enabling team sort of sits to take innovative ideas and principles and approaches and enable them to be used and adopted across the organization. And I'm going to speed up a little bit here. This gets us into, well, how do we get those people from the central data team into the domains? And broadly, there's three approaches that I've seen. Those data engineers, data scientists, data modelers, data architects, whatever, they now live in the domains, and they report into things like marketing and users in this case, or the different domains. May have an initiative-based approach, which is, we have a project, we're going to give you some people, you're going to do the project, they're going to come back. And then the last one is kind of a secondment approach, where some data engineers go into a domain, they do work for like 6 months, and then they rotate to the next domain, and to the next domain, to the next domain. This one down the bottom is the one that I think is most interesting, and probably the one with the most likely to last. And the reason I say that is a lot of data people don't want to be sort of stuck in one particular area. I'm not sure how valuable this middle one is. People do it, and the reason I say that is because if you're just doing one project, then it's not necessarily that you can become an expert to be a personal trainer in a particular area, because you're just kind of in and out of the domains. So I need to speed up a lot. So there's 3 different data products that Zhamak identifies. The first one is source aligned, where basically we are representing the operational systems essentially with maybe minimal transformation. And actually this is where I think things like data fabrics play a really interesting role, because data fabrics allow you to do automation, right? So we could automate that. We could say, actually, I would like to have in my data products, I just want to have a view very similar to what I've got in my operational systems. I hear this combination, should we use data mesh or data fabric? That's a nonsense discussion. Data fabric is the technology, data mesh is a philosophical approach to managing data. So you shouldn't really compare them. My clicker stopped like that. Right, so then we think about the next level is consumer aligned data products, right? This is actually where the value is. These things are created by experts who know about the business, who can add value. You're taking tacit knowledge out of their head and codifying it into things that are useful for others. And I think that's the kind of the real value. And then the last one, and I mention this because I think a lot of people avoid this because it's, they don't really understand it. The concept of aggregate data products. And where I would put an aggregate data product is somewhere in this picture, where we have organizational KPIs, we have domain level data products, and the aggregate data products are essentially the data products that support the KPIs that map between corporate objectives and domain objectives. And so, I say this in the literature, people don't really talk about this a lot. But actually, when we start thinking about kind of organizational KPIs down to data products, I think actually it's an interesting concept that we don't talk about enough. So data pipelines in a data mesh. I've got a couple more slides. So when we think about data pipelines, you can go, oh, hang on, you told me there wasn't a data pipeline. You have operational, you have analytical planes, we need to have data between them. You do have a data pipeline, right? Data products don't magically make that disappear. The way I would think about data products is data products are modules in a data pipeline, right? So we have a data product over here, which basically is sourcing some data from maybe this CRM system, and it's exposing it in some way. Then we have another data product that consumes that and transforms it in a particular way. And then we have another data product which does something. Maybe that joins with some other operational data, etc., etc. The reason this is interesting is because suddenly we have ownership of each of those modules down that pipeline, right? This guy says, I've got to finish. I'll be 1 minute. Right, this guy says I need to change the data product. He's going to notify all the downstream consumers. He knows who they are. They're going to get notified. There's a change coming. We need to ripple that change through. And I'll probably stop on this one. Failing fast, right? And this is something I think is really, really important when we think about data products. If your data products are taking you more than a day to build, and what I mean by that is the technical part, not the thinking part. If they're taking you more than a day, you've probably got the wrong technology. It's probably too hard, right? That's the reality. I have consulted with organizations that have told me that it took them 8 months to build their first data product. Clearly that's a nonsense, right? No one in their right mind is going to spend 8 months. I would suggest that if you're, and we can argue a day is too short, but really we should have the technology that enables someone in the domain to go, do you know what, I'm going to join some data from this, some data from that. Here's the thing, let's figure out if it's valuable. Is it valuable? Yes, it is. Let's operationalize it, CI/CD, whatever, right? That should not be something that takes us a long time. The thinking up ahead, which says, actually, I think this is relevant, these data attributes together, these provide some value, that could take a week, a month, or whatever. But the doing piece, that should be really fast. That should be frictionless. Because if it's not, the people in the domains are not going to start building data products, right? You're going to make it too hard, and therefore you don't end up with a mesh. You end up with, well, maybe a mess, I guess. Right, so I'm going to skip over data product security because the lady is waving at me, and I'm just going to leave on this one, which is basically we have these 4 books. They're available online. You can click on the Starburst website. You have to pay for them with your email address. And we'll send you the books, and then you'll give us email address, and we will hound you for the rest of time to respond to us in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, if you want to come to 414, then maybe we can talk about why you should use ABAC and not RBAC, if you're really interested. So thank you very much.